Well, hello there. Welcome to Daily Politics on Trust TV. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy, and governance. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed, standing in for your regular host, Hamza Idris. Now, as Nigerians struggle to cope with the current economic climate in the country, worsened by the removal of fuel subsidy, the Nigerian House of Representatives or the National Assembly has announced plans to procure and distribute official vehicles for members of the 10th National Assembly. A statement earlier in the week by the House Chairman, Committee on Media and Public Affairs, Akin Rotimi, reveals that the management has completed or is still in the process of procuring and distributing the vehicles to members of the National Assembly, to the consternation of most Nigerians. Now, while they proceed with their plans, the Naira has reached an all-time low after hitting 999 Naira per dollar in the INE window, that's the investors and exporters window, and 1,000, well, just a little over 1,000 Naira in the parallel market. It's Friday night on Daily Trust, and as you know, we get to give you an opportunity to weigh in, join the conversation so that you can become richer in context. We have with us in the studio to help us navigate some of these talking points tonight. Jubril Shitu is an accountability advocate and the chief executive at Public-Private Development Center, PPDC. He joins us on the show today to help us unpack and give some certain insight as well as perspective to the issues today. Thank you very much for joining us in the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Right. All right. We're going to take a moment's break. The program gets on the way in just a moment. Join us again. Yet again, Nigerians have found themselves scratching their heads, thinking, what are our leaders actually thinking? Do they actually relate to what the country is going through, especially as Nigerians discuss and debate the rationale behind the National Assembly's position about buying SUVs for House of Representative members, and it's reportedly going to cost just a little over 130 million naira or thereabout per unit. Right, let's get the conversation on the way. I mean, your initial thoughts on this one. First of all, a lot of people will say, there's nothing surprising about this one. Our leaders are very good at pretending as if they live in a different country compared to what we're going through.
Yes, and I think context really matters. We're talking about the removal of fuel subsidies. We're talking about the dollar hitting in the INE window, 990. And we're saying, oh, you know, we're about to purchase vehicles for the officials. Officials should have vehicles, and I think that's, you know, understood by many Nigerians. But when we talk about the fact that the economy really needs to restart, and we need to promote local industries, we need to be conscious also about our spending. You know, we have not had any remittances from NNPC in the past year. We're talking about the ways and means, the interest on the ways and means being more than the revenue that is coming in, and we're saying, oh, we about to, you know, spend extra to get those vehicles. And I think that's where Nigerians are really scratching their heads, you know.
The House, the Chairman, House Committee on Media and Public Affairs, Ms. Honorable Rotimi, was trying to give some sort of context around how the budget of the National Assembly itself is less than 1% of the federal government budget for this year, and he said that over the years there's been a persistent decline in allocations to the National Assembly. It's safe to say that he's trying to convince Nigerians that this is nothing compared to the big picture. But why do you think Nigerians are not willing to forgo this kind of spending in a time like this?
When you look at the budget of NAS, it's just, you know, 360 in the House of Reps and 109 in the Senate. So, okay,
I mean, they do have,
they have the commission and etc. But still, that's a fraction compared to majority of Nigerians who want education, healthcare, you know, water supply, good roads. We're talking about people. When I came in this evening, I saw people still standing on the streets because there were no vehicles, because the fares have been hijacked. You know, so I think when we talk about the increase relative to the increase in the budget, we're talking about a 20 trillion budget. So the question, you know, is then how really would the National Assembly want their budget to look
do you have
to the economy?
Do you have a problem with just the timing of it because of the current economic climate, or do you just have a problem with, what we have always discussed, which is the rising cost of governance itself?
It's more in the details. Like I said, as an official, you deserve an official vehicle. Again, what type of official vehicle relative to the challenges that we're facing in the economy can we be looking at? What options did they consider before arriving at the SUVs? And I'm sure Nigerians wouldn't complain if there was some justification around we are cutting down the cost of governance, but we still understand that these things are needed. Nigeria is a very, big economy in Africa, and definitely when we talk about our leaders, we aspire that they should have some level of comfort even as they govern. But then it shouldn't be at the expense of the people. So if you're telling us to cut our coats according to our size, I'm wearing a three-quarter, so you're still wearing a long sleeve, and I'm asking, please roll up your sleeves a bit for us.
And what does that say about the reality of the situation where we live in the same Nigeria, but apparently we have two different realities, one for Nigerians who are at the bottom, and a different Nigeria for the leaders at the top who are living a different lifestyle compared to what many Nigerians have to deal with?
Yes, it's like, we are living in two different countries. Our leaders live in one and we live in the other, and that's the pain. The fuel subsidy has been removed. We're yet to see the buses out on the streets, with the CNG, that's the compressed natural gas. We're yet to see the palliatives just started getting rolled out just last week, So we're saying that we live in different realities, and we need our leaders to really understand the pains that the average Nigerian is going through. I mean, one can only imagine how much the flight fares would, jack up to. One can only imagine how much it costs. Just 2 days ago, the National Bureau of Statistics released the figures, and the consumer price index was 30%. So, which means if I'm purchasing food next month, I'm expecting that it has jacked up again, by extra percentages. So if I was purchasing at 1,000 last year, a 30% increase means that I'm purchasing the same mudu of gari at 1,300 naira. In this economy, we need to be realistic.
And do you think it is a fair comparison when Nigerians juxtapose how much we're spending on the welfare? I mean, even before now, there's been several conversations about what it costs to take care of the needs of some of these lawmakers, for instance. In fact, whether the National Assembly itself has outlived its, utility, whether it should be a part-time. I know there's several conversations in the past, whether, the National Assembly should be a permanent, thing in the governance process. When you juxtapose what the federal government is trying to do right now with the palliatives, right? And then you consider what the lawmakers get, whether it's senators or House of Representatives, as their monthly allowances and some of those. And I remember the Senate President's comment about, a token for senators during the break, even though he retracted his statement. Do you think that, it is a fair comparison to make? I mean, I get it, it's apples and oranges, but Nigerians get 25,000 naira a month. Not every Nigerian anyway. Not every Nigerian. But also, you look at the big picture, is that what their lawmakers are getting is something that most people would never see in their entire lives.
Yes, and I think that's where we have the big challenge, because, government itself is not just restricted to those in the National Assembly. We're seeing, I was checking through the news, that's previous news, and I was seeing a local government sometime in 2019 was purchasing SUVs, and I'm asking myself, for what? We're yet to standardize official representation and the benefits that accrue to those offices. Again, it could be based on the economic contributions of those particular either local governments, then scale it up to the federal level. But what Nigerians are saying really at the bottom line is the cost of governance is really high. We should be having cost-cutting measures across board, and it's not just the National Assembly, but we are using this particular instance of the purchase of the vehicles to highlight again the fact that there seems to be some insensitivity. And can we come back to the drawing board and look at some of the challenges we are facing? The oil prices have gone up globally, and other countries are benefiting from the oil glut, but Nigeria is not. We are still tackling insecurity when it comes to the oil. We are still tackling, you know, the executive cutting down on the cost of governance. The same with the legislature. And we've said for a very long time, and this is part of the debate, the National Assembly needs to open up, you know. So if we are saying that some level of understanding with the average Nigerian is needed, I don't think it's out of place for us to ask.
Do you think this moral argument that Nigerians are making, that in a time like this, when so many of your constituents are going to bed hungry, so many of your constituents are unable to put food on the table, so many of your constituents can't pay for hospital bills because we know the inflation itself has trickled pretty much across the service industry, where hospital bills are a lot more expensive now. Drugs have significantly, drug prices have gone up significantly, close to 150% or thereabout. Why do you think that is flying over their head and they're unable to see that? Because from the committee chair, his position is that, oh, this is not a status symbol. This is not to boost the status of the members. They have to crisscross different parts of Nigeria on oversight and do all of these things.
Yes, but it is, and we have to say that it is. It's a status symbol. But I'm sure they have.
I'm sure there are more cheaper jeeps.
Exactly, and this is the pain. You know, there are more cheaper vehicles to purchase. You can promote even the local industry, but we're not even saying go that far. You know, balance things and show some posturing. The average Nigerian wants posture. You know, this debate comes up every 4 years about cost of governance, cost of governance. So let's not, you know, assume that this is something new. But what we are saying is that at this time, let's try to posture. You know,
let's all be on the same page.
Let's all be on the same page.
Right. Especially when the president has asked Nigerians to make sacrifices.
Yes, it has your sacrifices. Make some sacrifices for us.
Exactly. All right. The conversation is open. Of course, if you want to join in, chime in, feel free to be a part of it. Give us a call. We'd love to hear your take on this one as a Nigerian. Where do you stand on this position of the National Assembly, especially given the fact that they're saying that the plans are well underway to procure utility vehicles for some of these lawmakers, and it's reported that it's going to cost somewhere around the region of 120 to 130 million per SUV. And the expenditure doesn't stop there, mind you, but this is, of course, the main talking point for tonight, especially if you compare the situation with most Nigerians in light of the removal of fuel subsidy. Give us a take. Give us your take on this one. Feel free to join the conversation. The number is shown on your TV screen. Quick, rules of engagement. Turn down the volume of your TV set if you're calling in, and please be as articulate as you can with your thoughts. So, awaiting some of those calls to come in. Just want to get your take on whether you think Nigeria's displeasure with this. I mean, you have groups like Seraph, for instance, on a regular basis, taking them to court, raising hell over some of these developments. Why do you think that it doesn't, struck a nerve with them, with representatives who should naturally care about how the people they represent feel about some of these developments?
It's been long since we came together as a country to really discuss where we are, and the picture, is being seen either through the audit reports from the CBN or through some of these statements coming out from civil society groups, like Seraph, Budget, PPDC, Accountability Lab, and the rest.
Right.
But we've not come together to collectively reflect, and I think that's where the challenge is.
Just hold your thought for a moment. We do have a caller on the line. Chukwujoku Stephen is calling in from Enugu. Chukwujoku, thank you very much for calling in on the program. It's good to have you join us on Daily Politics.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead. Where do you stand on this?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, just before you go ahead, please just turn down the volume of your TV set so that we can hear you, because the interference is quite audible. Yeah.
Please, I'll ask the question that why. Can you hear me now?
Just go ahead. Just go ahead. I can hear you.
My I want to just the thing I want to make by saying that 130 or 20 million to pick a vehicle to have members is not much. When they have sheep, you know, instead of to go look into. I want to say about first subsidy. The one that should divide a red 120 million vehicles. Those that are representing us, what are they doing for us? There's no further route. Some of them are representing us. We are not seeing anything they are doing that sort of like such amount is picking a path. It's wrong.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much for the thought there. And I have a feeling that this is largely going to be what most Nigerians will echo as far as this conversation is concerned. But do keep those calls coming in. We'd love to hear more diverse opinions and views about this conversation. So just finish your line of thought.
Yes. So I think, and just as has been said, Nigerians are not saying don't govern us. That would be a different conversation. Nigerians are saying, let's look at the realities and let's adjust to the present realities. So we need to come back together to have a collective understanding, executive, legislative, judiciary. Let's look at the current situation and let's understand where we intend to go. The executive has said, we want to be able to get to 8 trillion, to an 8 trillion dollar economy.
I think that's what the new CBN governor is targeting.
In the next 8 years. You don't get there by increasing your expenditure. You don't. I mean, basic economics will tell you that. You get there by planning. You cut down on waste. You look at ways of bringing in wealth.
We can't afford this.
We can't. And that's the reality. When you look at the ways and means, the amount we are paying on interest for ways and means is 1.69 trillion.
Okay, we have Umar. Yeah, we have Umar from Borno State join us now. Umar, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Where do you stand on this?
What I saw.
I can hear you, Umar. Go ahead.
My stand on this is I don't think this is a development because Nigeria needs to develop. If you can hear me, Nigeria needs to be developed. Not buying a new car to the House of Representatives and other political holders Nigeria can develop.
Umar, if I can just ask you this question, if your representative is listening to the program or watching the program right now, what would you tell him?
What I was supposed to tell him, maybe let him try and get that 200 million naira at least to empower some youth to have a sense of belonging. One car for 200 million naira is not something that's supposed to be even buy to the House of Representatives. It's not even good.
Right. I'm not sure it costs 200. I think we're reporting 130 or thereabout. But I do get your point. Thank you very much.
Even 30 million naira. It's too cost now.
Okay.
At this right moment that people are suffering.
Point taken, Umar. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. I mean, obviously, it does make a lot of sense, isn't it? Especially when you look at the economics of the situation, you look at the humanitarian situation we're dealing with. We've had this endemic poverty situation for quite some time.
Yes.
The poverty crisis is still there. Unemployment is still very high.
3%, yes. And that's as you can, and thank you, Mr. Umar. That's what Nigerians are saying. We're not saying you shouldn't have your official vehicles. You can still have an official vehicle that costs even half that amount. If you want to go extreme, you can still have an official vehicle that costs, way below that amount. But what Nigerians are saying, you could even still have the official vehicle if Nigerians, if the economy was good enough and we're earning, you could have delayed the purchase of the official vehicle to look at some of the key indicators of the economy and if it's moving forward in a positive trajectory. Because, I mean, the House of Reps members, they had vehicles before they got into these offices. If we're saying that. So we could have even had an arrangement where And, you know, I was talking to someone, I said, in South Africa, you get to hire vehicles, and the vehicles stay, you know, even after the cycle. We're not comparing ourselves to other countries.
Obviously, and that's something that we need to unpack, especially following the 9th Assembly's departure from the National Assembly, where we're hearing some of these complaints. Taiwo from Gombe is joining us at this hour. Thank you very much for staying on the line, Taiwo. This is a conversation that's got a lot of Nigerians talking. I wonder what your thoughts are. Taiwo.
All right, hello.
Yeah, can you hear me? Go ahead, please. Where do you stand?
All right. Yeah, my stand is, I think it's such a pity that in Nigeria we don't have leaders who have empathy. I expected that leaders, our senator and those in the House of Reps, should be able to empathize with the situation Nigerians are passing through now. I'm not against them having new vehicles, but the timing is not just okay. I believe they should have official cars for their official duties, but the timing is just wrong. Salaries are not increased yet. The so-called palliative, not everybody is enjoying it yet. And these are the people who went to vote for you. I expected that handle their case first. And once their case are handled, I'm very sure the outcry wouldn't be much like this. But when there is no empathy and sympathy, they just feel to hell with every Nigerian, let me get what I want to get. That is the problem of Nigeria, and that's why this outcry will continue. And my prayer for Nigeria is that God will touch our leaders to be empathic, so that we can enjoy the benefits of what God has given Nigeria to enjoy for all. Nigeria does not belong to politicians. Nigeria belongs to Nigerians. And Nigerians must enjoy what God has given us in this nation. And we pray for them. Those that are not, deciding to change in any way, we pray that God will touch their heart. That's my contribution.
Thank you very much, Taiwo. I do, appreciate that contribution. And the key word there is empathy.
Empathy.
Government must be able to show that. Must be able to embody it. Because at the end of the day, that is the spirit of the idea of governance, isn't it?
Yes, and you can see the patriotism. And I would really like to comment that even in the hardship, Nigerians are not criticizing or condemning. You know, when you look at even the wave of strike, which was about to come on board, and the negotiations that were navigated, it shows that there is a willingness of the average Nigerian to see the country move forward in a positive trajectory. So if we are seeing the posturing and the empathy again from our leaders to say, oh, this particular issue of, for instance, the fuel, subsidy that has been removed, the palliative measures, let's ensure we are monitoring that it's getting to the people. Let's ensure that the bosses are getting to the people. Let's ensure that the oil exports, because that's our largest in our foreign exchange. Let's ensure that the oil exports, at least we are maximizing our outputs, and addressing the security issues in that region. Right. Nigerians will get that sense of belonging, which Mr. Taiwo referred to, that Nigeria belongs to Nigerians.
And for the most part, I dare say that many Nigerians don't feel like, the country is taking care of them, especially given the limited resources we have with us.
Yeah, the people on the call.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a pain.
And there's one on the line also at this moment. Ferdinand from Wukari, it's good to hear from you again, as always. Thank you very much for joining us on the program, Ferdinand. I reckon you have an opinion that most likely will align with some of the callers that have made their contributions already. So what is your take on this development?
Well, I think it's pure insensitivity on the part of some of the Nigerian leaders. I think while it is not exactly a crime to have an official vehicle, it is the timing that is a problem here. This is a time where almost all Nigerians' poverty is on the increase, cost of living is high, everything. And then people are still struggling from the impact of fuel subsidy. And then, zoom, our parliamentarians are buying cars worth over 120 million naira each. I think this is a sheer insensitivity.
And what do you want Nigerians to do with regards to this, especially in trying to communicate to the political elites you know, their grievances, but also how things need to change, because complaining without any sort of action plan is just complaining.
Of course, it has to be complete, because all we are doing is share lamentation. What can we change? We can only call to your program and then express our grievances at their insensitivity. What else can we do?
Okay. So let's play it this way. Earlier, when I had one of the callers, you know, direct Umar from Borno, you know, if you were to speak to his representative, I know, you know, the member representing your federal constituency, if you can talk to him about this, what would you like him to know?
Well, I would draw from what a woman in, I think that was Uganda Parliament I was listening to, where the Parliament proposes an increment in the wages of the parliamentarians. She told them, Kai, this is not what I bargained for. This is not what I came here to serve the people and not to reap from these poor masses. And so our leaders should have that sense of duty. They should have a sense of duty. If for the first time, if they can stand up to something like I said today, too, Nigerians are still struggling. Let us look at this Nigerian, this poor Nigerian that we offer to serve, and then help, you know, improve their standard of living before we think of buying cars for ourselves or this and that. I think that would be applauded.
Right. Ferdinand, as always, good to hear from you. Thank you very much for your contribution. Really appreciate you for calling.
No, thank you.
Keep those calls coming in. The sensitivity, the lack of it.
Yes.
And also what he said, that sense of duty, but I think more importantly is selflessness, because that's what we expect leaders to be. Selfless.
Yes.
In this particular situation, they're not being selfless, are they?
Well, I mean, the verdict is out for everybody to make their own conclusions. But really, you know, just as Mr. Ferdinand has said, the patriotism that Nigerians are expressing, I think the leaders are taking it for granted, and it's not fair. You know, you just heard Mr. Ferdinand say the only thing we are doing is that we are voicing out again the concerns. Because Nigerians believe that, you know, for us to have elected this set of leaders, there should be some approach or some basic understanding about what it means to govern. So that expectation is really missing, and that's why Nigerians are complaining. And
what about the disconnection between the leaders and the led? Because we see from other climes, whether it's in the US or in the UK, we like to always draw parallels with that, right?
Yes.
Where the elected have this connection, whether it's through town halls or whatever it is, to engage. But just before I land on that question, we do have a Mukhtar from Casino calling in. So I'd like to hear what he has to say. Mukhtar, thank you very much for joining us on the program. What is your take on this conversation?
Hello?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Sorry, what's your name again?
My name is Mukhtar from Katsina State.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. Mukhtar, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Pleasure to have you join us on the program. What is your take on this conversation?
My take is, with all the suffering that the masses are going through, is it clear that is the next thing for our representatives? And apart from that, after all these lamentation, complaints, and the cry out by the Nigerians, they will still go ahead and buy these cars. I just pray, after all said and done, with all these talks, they will hear us out and know that the cars they want to buy is not the next thing for us now. Millions of Nigerians are suffering, sleeping with hunger, but them, they are after buying of SUVs. Is that what is next for us in Nigeria?
Right. And
what are they there? Are they not there representing us? This is just, I don't know. This is just, to me, it's oppression.
Right.
And they don't care about us. If they really care about us, they will not even be thinking of buying cars at this time of that we are in.
Right. Omar, I do share, and understand at least your frustration with regards to this development. So thank you very much for echoing those, frustrations, which has been re-echoed by countless other callers joining the conversation.
But back to what you were saying earlier, I think the real challenge is that the erosion of governance, because one would wonder that why is it that it's almost seeming like it's Nigerians against their leaders, in this particular conversation, as opposed to hearing different interests coming up to say, look, let's try to do things the right way. So it's an erosion of governance, and it's very clear for everyone to see that from the various bodies, the political parties have a role to play in this. But because of the lack of ideology...
You have a Labour Party that called on its members in the National Assembly to reject those SUVs.
But have we seen their response?
But sadly, the response is, we're still going to take it.
Exactly. So it's seemingly us versus them.
Why do you think they don't understand the point, or are they just deliberately missing the point?
But the reality is that the erosion of governance already means that I'm not able to trust that this money that I'm foregoing is going to get to the right place it should be. So I'm not able to have oversight because even the budget, we're not able to account for, how much has been spent. The confirmation of the EFCC chairman and the revelation that he made that over over almost 2 trillion was lost in procurement fraud. So what is the guarantee that a lawmaker who lets go of this money will see it delivered in basic services to the average citizen? And I think unless we're able to rebuild that frame, we would continue to wallow in this bad governance issues that we're facing as a country.
Right. Isa from Kefi in Nasarawa State is joining us at this moment. Isa, thank you very much for calling in on the program. A lot of views have already been expressed. What are your thoughts about this conversation?
Okay, I just want to contribute in this way because okay, good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Isa. Go ahead, please.
But at this critical situation of our nation, then the lawmakers are proposing to buy a car of worth of 50 billion naira is very worrisome. Because as it is in Nigeria today, there is no any motorable road. That's where I'm coming from now. No motorable road in Nigeria. We are in rain. I have traveled throughout Nigeria. Let me exclude the northern part of the country, but to the west, to the east, we have spent a journey of just like 7 hours. We end up sleeping on the road. Like yesterday, I was coming from Lagos. There is a particular spot we stopped for almost 4 hours. There was no movement on the road, no motorable road. Our lawmakers will look into some of these critical situations. They can forfeit. Let's tell them to forfeit. We should call on them. We know they need vehicles. Some of them own thousands of vehicles before they get into that office. Let's drop the road and then look at the health sector of this nation. I can draw your attention down to Federal Medical Center in Kefi here.
Right.
There are wards that there is no bed. No bed. So not only here in Kefi, every other part of Nigeria, the health sector needs serious attention.
Right.
Should we talk of the education? So they have to look into some of these challenges and do away with these cars and other things they think. Then let them voice out. They should listen to people that elected them to this office. They should come down to us. We'll make them understand our worries, our issues. We have a lot of issues.
I mean, it's safe to say that actions, as we all know, have consequences, right? Politically speaking, what do you think the consequences of things like this should be, especially as a voter, for instance?
Sir?
As a voter, what would be your reaction to politicians who don't rightly prioritize the issues at hand?
Okay, like myself, what I will look at is we should at least make them understand. And if they don't, maybe next election we vote some of them out of that office. Because this is where people represent us, bring issues that concern us onto table and deliberate and bring development back to us. Not for them to be there and then designing themselves with cars and houses. To go there and represent us. To speak for us, not for themselves. They have to speak for us. They have to come down to us and know our things and take it there and deliberate on how to bring good governance to us. What is car of 50 billion naira for us of return?
Right. Yeah, Issa, thank you very much for joining the program. Really appreciate your invaluable contribution. I mean, crimes or actions that are not punished are reinforced. Is it safe to say that over the years they realize that they can appropriate some of these funds into areas that does not necessarily serve the greater good without any consequences, and that's why it's still happening?
Which is why the reaction is, oh, we are not even taking a big share compared to what we are taking out of the entire budget, rather than we really need these things, you know, for us to be able to do our work, and we are committed to X, Y, and Z. And that's because there is no accountability mechanism that can really ensure that they don't get away with this, and that's the reality that Nigerians
and you look at the priorities right now, whether it's security, whether it's jobs, whether it's education, healthcare. I mean, you have several trending videos. I mean, we just had a report yesterday in Sese community in Kaduna, where the residents are, you know, saying that the bad road there is, you know, being taken advantage of by robbers to exploit them, to attack them, to do this. Farmers can't transport their goods. You had that video from Edo where the school collapsed and you know students were on their knees begging the government to fix it. And these are some of the developments you know, from different parts of the country.
It's the erosion of governance from top to the bottom, you know, from the local governments to the states and to the federal, of course. 2.9 trillion was the figure that was quoted by the current EFCC chairman during his screening. 2.9 trillion, sorry, 2.9 trillion. To put it into perspective, last year we're talking about a deficit of about 6 trillion. So you're telling me that
a quarter of it,
you know, or even just half of it was lost to procurement fraud, which means some people just pocketed those monies and they never got to either build those roads or those schools that we're talking about, or if they had to build it, they built substandard. So the dynamics has to just change. We can't say, I mean, look at the country now. We're having to borrow again, another $70 million and another $1.5 billion to spend it on what? Expenditure? I mean, not on capital projects.
And you look at, you know, the way politics is being practiced in Nigeria. Is it safe to say that for the most part it's seen as a business venture where a regular person could get into politics and then all of a sudden he's a very rich person overnight, and that's why things like this continue to happen?
And that's the message. It's like, oh, you've really worked hard, so come and take your official vehicle, you know, and you become a big man. Whereas, I mean, we see other countries, some of them take public transport. If our leaders are taking public transport, then they'll be sure that it will work. Because if I go there and I have to take public transport, then I'll be sure that it will work. So we need to start thinking, and that's the message Nigerians are passing. We are not saying don't get your official vehicles. A, the timing is not right. B, you could have considered other options. And C, there are other priorities for you to be looking at, for which we're not getting the benefits, but you are asking us to make those sacrifices, and you're not ready to make the sacrifices. And I'm saying it is not just the legislature, it's the executive as well. You know, and not just
we're talking about it like the figure was being bandied about during the president's trip to New York for the United Nations General Assembly, the 78th General Assembly. Close to $1 billion now was spent,
just like that,
you know, for logistical purposes.
I mean, you know, I deliberately did not want to raise that particular point because, again, the question really is, how are you insulting the sensitivity of Nigerians? You know, you tell us that you want to take us to the next level, which is an $8 trillion economy. But the way we are moving, we're not even seeing any. We're having to borrow for our 26 trillion, you know, to fund our budget for next year. So where are we really going with all of this?
Is it safe to say that, you know, there's a sense of double speak from the government, whether at federal or state?
Yes.
Because I also like to think that state governors are also not exempted. I mean, the focus is on the National Assembly, but it cut across the sub-nationals also. That, you know, when it comes to prioritizing the needs of the people, we get the sense that Nigeria is broke.
Yes.
But when it comes to attending to the needs of the few elites in power, there's enough money to do some of these things.
Exactly. So it's like politics for the big man by the big man, for the benefit of the big man, rather than for the citizens.
I think Thomas Sankara said it best: champagne for the few.
Yes.
Well, we do have Isa Ibrahim on the line from Kaduna. Isa, thank you very much for joining us on the program. What is your submission?
Okay, different.
Isa, are you on the line?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead, please. What is your take?
I have a different opinion on this issue.
Go ahead. I would love to hear it.
You see, in Nigeria today, most... Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening to you, Isa.
You see, in Nigeria today, most of our politicians bought their seat. That is what we are supposed to know. You see, when I was casting my vote, I saw so many things that were not correct. You can imagine somebody will give you, you know, a pack of indomie or spaghetti for you to vote for him. If he gets there, if he's doing anything, you have no right to say anything. Because he has already bought your vote. He has connected, but he has picked you for voting for him or her. Therefore, buying of tofu is not a problem as for me, as far as I'm concerned. Because Nigeria today, you see, it's because of hunger. A lot of people, they connected money and they voted for them. So to these politicians, they have you over. There's nothing you can say about it.
Okay.
Therefore, buying people in this point in time, they don't consider you and I as anything, because to them they are going to represent themselves. I'm not you and not me.
I get the
That
gist.
is my own take.
I get the gist, Isa. But if I can just ask you this: is your explanation a justification or an excuse of what is happening?
It's not actually an excuse.
So it's a justification then, because the relationship was transactional. Some people, a few, I would dare say, took some token to vote for certain individuals.
It's not an excuse, because there is a lot of problems that people are hungry. That's what I actually understand what the other guy was saying by saying that, you know, there are people that are suffering and so on and so forth. And these people, they don't think of us. They don't think of people. They have a very hardened heart. And because of that, you know, they feel that I'm just trying to tell what they are feeling. They feel that I have not them over. I've already paid them for their services. Therefore, I can go there and do everything I like. And therefore, they are representing themselves and their pockets. So they don't even think of the masses. And that is the main reason. That is where you are supposed to go. How are we voting? What is this voting that you are voting now? If I vote for a politician, I collect money. It means that I've sold my vote. Whatever that politician goes there to do, it's not representing me.
Okay. Just before you go, Isa, do you agree with this expenditure? Do you think we should be spending 130 million now on SUVs for our members?
It is wrong.
Okay.
Very, very wrong.
Okay. Thank you very much for the contribution. And, you know, it's a very valid point where we have to look at ourselves and ask, you know, the question, how did we get here? And to his point, exactly, there are a lot of people who bury their head in the sand, take 2,000 naira, 1,000 naira, 500 naira, whatever amount is, even though they know that selling their vote is illegal.
Yes.
And that in itself takes away the democracy out of it, because it becomes transactional now.
Yes, but then, you know, and thank you, Mr. Isa, for sharing a very different perspective. There are two questions I would like to put forward. One is of proportionality, and the other is of reflection. So, for instance, if I realize that I've made a mistake, then the question is, how far does the person that I've sold my, vote to, how far does he have to go? Right now, every Nigerian is owing, at least when we look at our national debt, 219,000 naira. So does it have to get to 1 million before I'll now realize that, oh, all I gave this man, was a vote in exchange for an Indomie, which is valued at maybe 200.
It's safe to say that more Nigerians didn't actually
and more
sell their
Nigerians
votes.
did not sell their votes as well. So what about, which is why I'm asking about proportion. What is the proportion of Nigerians that sold their votes compared to those that did not sell? And does that then relate to that justification for which we are saying, oh, we should just look to the other side and say, oh, let things just continue as they're going.
But do you also feel that this is at the heart of the problem, where these politicians,
yes,
at the end of the day, because of the process itself, because of the monetized system that we have with our politics and our election itself, how much, how expensive it has become over the years.
But the reality is that when we consider sacrifice, there are some people that should look at the current system and go through it to get in there and try to change the system, rather than, oh, we've gone through the system and because of this, every other person must wait their turn. So I think that's selfishness or selflessness,
It's missing.
It's missing. Okay. Selflessness is missing.
We have another Isa from Kaduna, but he's calling in from Zaria. So let's get his thoughts. Isa, thank you very much for joining us on the program. We just have a couple of minutes to spare, so please, quickly, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, good evening. My thoughts on this issue, please.
Hello, Isa, go ahead. I can hear you.
Okay, my thought on this issue is I just feel this is an example of open corruption. They may not necessarily bring vehicles worth that amount of money, something much less or lesser, maybe 50 million or so. And then the difference, of course, goes to them. So that's an example of open corruption.
Are you saying that it's based on speculation, or is because you have an idea this is what they actually do?
I just have an idea because this is Nigeria. We see their behaviors.
All right. Go ahead.
Then again, my worry is not even. This is a systemic thing in this country, because like they keep telling you as a way of defense, they tell you that you need to see what will be bought for the ministers, what will be bought for other, government officials at the executive arm of government, which is true. And if you go to state governments, the same thing, the state houses of assembly, even the local government chairman, the vehicles they buy now. So it's like a standard that is being set at the federal level will be emulated even at the state level. Recently, I was watching a report. I think a particular, a state that is rich in oil that normally gets 13% derivation, and I'm sure they get a lot of money. But they cannot even pay ordinary 30,000 naira as minimum wage for their teachers. So, but when you see the expenses, then you begin to ask ourselves, why are we talking about EFCC or corruption? I think we are just not serious about it.
Isa, I couldn't agree with you more on some of those points. Thank you very much for calling in on the program. And Isa is our final caller. Just to sum it up, you get that sense that a lot of it, to his point exactly, is about kickbacks also. Yeah. We've had budgets being padded. We've also had some of these purchases that have been marred with some level of corruption where, you're buying one tablet, but you jack up the price much more than what it actually cost in the market. So you can get your markup at the end of the day. What are your thoughts about what are some of the things Isa highlighted?
The citizens, really, we are the ones that would continue to allow this to happen. When we are ready, we can begin to mobilize, and we are, ensuring that the leaders that are being elected into these public offices are people that have empathy, that have human feeling, that have the interest of Nigerians at heart. But until we get there, we'll continue to complain, we'll continue to grumble, we'll continue to appeal, but nothing will move.
Do you think that they're silenced because they are beneficiaries of this? They are the receiving end of this gift.
But how much,
so to say, you know, makes them complicit in a way, even if they don't agree with it in principle? The fact that they are going to collect it.
How much can you benefit? You know, I was asking a group of people that I work with that in the past 3 months, how much have they contributed to meeting the needs of either a stranger, one in their family, one in their community. And by the time we summed up just among 30 people, you know, the amount was running into millions. It's not sustainable for anybody, genuinely. So how much can you really benefit from basic services not working, from you having to provide your security, your electricity, to pay for the hike in transport fees, for you to pay for the cost of feeding? How much really, you know? So it's a question for all of us to answer.
And unfortunately, you know, those questions will remain unanswered for the foreseeable future, going by the current trend.
Yes.
Jubril Shittu, we're going to have to leave it here for now, but thank you very much for the analysis and, of course, for navigating some of those talking points with us this evening. Thank you very much for stopping by.
Yes.
All right, this is where we wrap things up on today's edition of the program. Thank you most kindly for joining us. We do hope it was as engaging, as informative as it needed to be. Thank you for all the calls. We appreciate you for weighing in on the conversation. For those of you who couldn't get through, next week we get to do this all over again, perhaps a different talking point. Be sure to join Daily Politics live, always airing weekdays, exclusive on Trust TV. And of course, feel free to follow us across our social media platforms so you can catch up on several of these conversations. And you can also visit trusttv.com for more. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed. For myself and the rest of the team, thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next time.